The Galactic Emperor's skull shattered as the railgun round tore through his head, sending chunks of alien brain matter splattering against the bulkhead. Captain Jeremy Henry watched the carnage on his viewscreen with cold satisfaction. The pompous Edosian bastard had arrogantly demanded Earth's surrender, not realizing humanity's secret fleet had just jumped into the heart of his empire. For decades, the United Earth Council had quietly prepared for this day, ever since first contact when the Galactic Empire threatened to exterminate humanity. Trillions had been funneled into secret shipyards hidden in the Oort cloud, constructing warships with technology reverse-engineered from the few, a precursor race that once challenged Edosian supremacy. Now over 1,000 state-of-the-art human dreadnoughts were poised like a dagger at the enemy's throat. The Resilience, pride of the fleet, stood at the vanguard. Jeremy gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered around him, absorbing the incoming fire. They'd struck a fatal blow, but the Edosians still outnumbered them 50-1. "All ships commence Alpha Strike," Jeremy barked. 100 fusion warheads and kinetic kill vehicles spat from the human fleet, racing towards critical targets. Orbital foundries, antimatter refineries, and hypernet relays died in blossoms of nuclear fire, crippling the Edosian war machine. But the enemy wouldn't go down easily. Waves of drones and fighters poured from the besieged Edosian capital ships, swarming the human vessels. The Resilience's point defense grid flared to life, filling space with tungsten flechettes. Jeremy watched the tactical display grimly as the two fleets tangled like pit bulls in a fight to the death. The Edosians had to be stopped here and now. If the human fleet fell, there would be nothing left to stand against galactic tyranny. The survival of Earth and freedom itself hung in the balance. Light years away on the Edosian homeworld, Emperor Odin fumed upon his throne of bone and steel. General Zardoc, his most trusted advisor, strode into the throne room and dropped to one knee before his master. "My lord, our scouts have located secret human outposts hidden in the Oort cloud of their home system. The humans have constructed a clandestine war fleet." Odin's eyes flashed with barely contained rage. He slammed an armored fist on the arm of his throne, the metal reverberating from the impact. "So the humans dare to defy us. They scurry in the shadows like vermin, building their paltry ships and dreaming of resistance. Fools, they cannot comprehend the might of the Edosian Empire." Zardoc kept his gaze lowered respectfully. "What are your orders, sire? Shall I command the fleet to set course for the human system and wipe out their hidden bases?" "No," Odin growled. "I want you to crush their pathetic fleet first. Grind them to dust, take prisoners and drag the location of their homeworld out of them. Once we know where Earth lies, we will descend upon it and reduce it to a burning cinder. This galaxy will learn the price of defying my will." "As you command, my emperor." Zardoc rose and saluted before spinning on his heel and marching from the throne room. Odin leaned back, a cruel smile twisting his features as he imagined the final destruction of the human race. Earth would burn, and the Edosian Empire would feast on its ashes, a testament to his power and the folly of resistance. On the bridge of the ESS Resilience, Captain Jeremy Henry gripped the edge of the holotable as he studied the latest intel from Earth Command. The Edosian Armada was mobilizing, no doubt preparing to hunt down and annihilate the human fleet. Jeremy knew he had to act fast. If the Edosians found the location of Earth, it would be game over for the human race. He had to buy time, even if it meant splitting his forces. "Navigation. I want the 15th Battle Group to break off and hit the enemy supply depot in the Antares sector. If we can disrupt their logistics, it might slow them down. The rest of the fleet will remain here and prepare for the main assault." As the crew scrambled to carry out his orders, Jeremy felt a cold knot of dread forming in his gut. The Edosian fleet was massive, and even with the few's advanced technology, the humans were badly outgunned. But they had to hold the line, no matter the cost. The fate of Earth, of all humanity, rested on their shoulders. The Resilience hummed with barely leashed power as its weapon systems primed and the fleet formed up around it. On every deck, men and women prepared for the coming storm, their faces grim with the knowledge that this could be their last battle. In the silence of space, the two fleets converged, hurtling toward a confrontation that would decide the future of the galaxy. Captain Mikhail Petrov squinted at the viewscreen, his brow furrowed in confusion. The diversionary fleet had just dropped out of hyperspace on the outskirts of the Adosian supply depot when they spotted it, a massive, unidentified vessel lurking among the Adosian ships like a phantom. Its hull was a dull metallic grey, pockmarked with strange protrusions and flickering lights. "Hail that ship," Mikhail ordered, his voice tense. "Find out who they are and what they're doing here." The comms officer nodded, his fingers flying over the console. "No response, sir. They're not acknowledging our hails." Suddenly the alien ship shuddered to life. Its hull began to shimmer with an eerie, pulsating energy that cast an otherworldly glow across the void of space. Mikhail felt a chill run down his spine as he watched the strange phenomenon unfold. Without warning, a blinding beam of energy erupted from the alien vessel, lancing through the darkness and striking the nearest Adosian ship. The unfortunate vessel exploded in a fiery ball of debris, its hull instantly vaporized by the devastating weapon. Chaos erupted on the bridge of the ESS Shadow as alarms blared and warning lights flashed. "Evasive maneuvers," Mikhail shouted, gripping the arms of his command chair as the ship lurched to the side. "Get us out of that thing's firing range." But it was too late. The alien ship unleashed a barrage of energy beams, each one finding its mark with terrifying precision. Adosian ships burst into flames left and right, their hulls crumpling like tin cans under the onslaught. The human fleet wasn't spared either. Several ships were hit, their comm systems fried by the mysterious weapon. "We've lost contact with the rest of the fleet," the comms officer reported, his voice strained with panic. "Our communications are down, sir." Mikhail watched in horror as the Adosian ships scattered in all directions, desperately trying to evade the alien vessel's wrath. The human fleet was in disarray, their formation broken, and their ships struggling to regroup in the face of the sudden attack. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the alien ship vanished. One moment it was there, a looming spectre of destruction, and the next it was gone, leaving behind only a trail of shattered ships and unanswered questions. On the bridge of the ESS Resilience, Jeremy Henry stared at the fragmented distress calls flashing across the holotable. The diversionary fleet had been hit hard, their communications garbled, and their status unknown. He felt a sinking feeling in his gut as he realized the magnitude of the situation. "Sir, what are your orders?" his first officer asked, her voice tight with tension. "Do we continue with the attack on the Adosian Armada, or do we go after the diversionary fleet?" Jeremy hesitated, his mind racing. If they abandoned the plan and went after the diversionary fleet, they risked losing the element of surprise against the Adosians. But if they left their comrades to fend for themselves, they could be condemning them to a grim fate. And then there was the alien ship. Its sudden appearance and devastating attack couldn't be a coincidence. Jeremy had a chilling realization that they might be facing a threat far greater than the Adosian Empire, one that could change the course of the war and the fate of humanity itself. The bridge of the Resilience was silent, the crew waiting with bated breath as Jeremy weighed his options. The weight of the unknown pressed down upon them all, a suffocating blanket of uncertainty and fear. Jeremy closed his eyes, the burden of command heavy on his shoulders, as he prepared to make the most difficult decision of his life. Jeremy Henry clenched his jaw, the weight of command bearing down on him like a physical force. He knew what he had to do, even if it meant dividing his already strained resources. "Commander Tanaka," Jeremy said, turning to his trusted officer, "I need you to take a squadron and investigate what happened to the diversionary fleet. We need answers about that alien ship." Akira Tanaka nodded, her face a mask of determination. "Understood, Captain. I'll gather a team and set out immediately." As Tanaka left the bridge to prepare her squadron, Jeremy turned back to the holotable, his eyes fixed on the pulsing red dots representing the Adosian Armada. The Resilience and the remaining ships had to hold the line, buying time for Tanaka to uncover the truth behind the mysterious attack. The void of space stretched out before Commander Tanaka's squadron as they approached the last known coordinates of the diversionary fleet. The scene that greeted them was one of utter devastation. The twisted, scorched remains of both human and Idosian ships floated in a macabre dance, their once mighty hulls now nothing more than shattered husks. Amidst the debris, Tanaka spotted a familiar silhouette, the ESS Shadow, Captain Petrov's ship. It drifted lifelessly, its running lights extinguished, and its hull bearing the scars of an unimaginable assault. "There's the Shadow," Tanaka said, her voice tight with apprehension. "Prep a boarding party, we're going in." The boarding party moved through the eerily silent corridors of the Shadow, their footsteps echoing in the lifeless ship. As they pressed deeper into the vessel, a sense of wrongness permeated the air, a palpable unease that set their nerves on edge. And then they saw it. The bodies of the crew fused with the very structure of the ship. Their faces, contorted in silent screams of agony, seemed to stare accusingly at the boarding party. It was as if the very essence of their being had been ripped away, leaving only hollow shells behind. In the ship's medical bay, they found Captain Petrov, barely clinging to life. His body was ravaged, his skin pale and clammy. The medical team rushed to stabilize him, working feverishly to keep him alive. Tanaka leaned in close, her voice urgent. "Captain Petrov, what happened here? What was that alien ship?" Petrov's eyes fluttered open, his gaze unfocused. "Not a ship," he rasped, his voice barely above a whisper. "A being, the Harvester. It feeds on life itself." A chill ran down Tanaka's spine as the pieces fell into place. The alien vessel, the devastation it wrought, it was all the work of a single, terrifying entity, an entity that sought to consume the very essence of life to sustain itself. She knew then that the secret fleet was facing not just the Idosian Empire, but a cosmic horror beyond their darkest nightmares. As the squadron made a hasty retreat to rejoin the main fleet, Tanaka could only pray that Jeremy Henry and the crew of the Resilience were ready for the truth that awaited them. The void of space crackled with tension as the Resilience faced off against the looming Idosian armada. On the bridge, Jeremy Henry stood rigid, his eyes locked on the holographic visage of Emperor Odin that flickered before him. "Surrender, human," Odin sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "Bow before the might of the Idosian Empire, or face annihilation." Jeremy's jaw tightened, his resolve unwavering. "We will never submit to your tyranny, Odin. Humanity will fight to the last breath." Odin's face contorted with rage, his fist slamming down on an unseen surface. "Then prepare to die, you insolent." The transmission cut out abruptly as a new signal burst through, the image of Commander Tanaka, replacing Odin's snarling visage. Her face was ashen, her eyes haunted. "Captain Henry, we have urgent news," Tanaka said, her voice strained. "The alien ship, it's not a ship at all. It's a living entity, a harvester that feeds on life itself. It's what attacked the diversionary fleet." Jeremy felt a chill run through him, his mind reeling from the implications. The Idosian threat paled in comparison to this new horror. "Patch me through to Odin," Jeremy ordered, a plan forming in his mind. Moments later, Odin's scowling face reappeared. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" he demanded. "Emperor Odin, we face a threat greater than our conflict," Jeremy said, his voice steady. "The Harvester endangers not just humanity, but your empire as well. It will consume us all if we don't stand together." Odin's eyes narrowed, suspicion etched on his features. "And why should I believe you, human?" Jeremy nodded to Tanaka. "Transmit the data from the Shadow." The haunting images of the fused crew and Petrov's chilling logs played out before Odin. His expression shifted from disbelief to grudging acceptance. "Very well," Odin growled. "A temporary truce until this harvester is dealt with." As the two leaders began to negotiate the terms of their uneasy alliance, a shudder ran through the Resilience. Alarms blared as sensors detected a massive energy surge. "Captain," the tactical officer shouted, "unknown entity emerging from subspace bearing 270. On the view screen, a writhing mass of darkness tore its way into reality, tendrils of inky black reaching out like grasping claws. The Harvester had arrived. Adosian and human ships alike were caught in its grasp, their hulls crumpling like paper. As the Harvester drained the very life from them, crews screamed in agony, their essence ripped away to feed the insatiable hunger of the cosmic horror. Jeremy gripped the arms of his command chair, his knuckles white. "All ships, open fire! Concentrate your attacks on the central mass!" The United Fleets unleashed a barrage of weapons fire, lances of energy, and missiles streaking through the void towards the Harvester. The creature shuddered under the onslaught, but its tendrils continued to lash out, leaving trails of destruction in their wake. On the Eradicator's bridge, Odin snarled orders to his crew, his eyes blazing with a mix of fear and determination. The Adosian ships formed a wall of guns and shields, pouring fire into the Harvester's writhing form. The battle raged on, the very fabric of space warping and twisting around the Harvester's malevolent presence. Ships on both sides fell, consumed by the creature's insatiable appetite. Jeremy watched the carnage unfold, his heart pounding in his chest. The fate of not just humanity but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. They had to find a way to stop the Harvester, to sever its hold on the living. The Resilience shuddered as a tendril lashed across its hull, alarms screaming in protest. Jeremy gritted his teeth, his mind racing. There had to be a weakness, a way to strike at the heart of the beast. As the battle reached a fever pitch, a desperate plan began to take shape in Jeremy's mind. It was a gamble, a last-ditch effort that could spell the end for them all. But with the Harvester's hunger growing by the second, there was no choice left but to act. Jeremy opened a channel to the fleet, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "All ships, this is Captain Henry. I have a plan, but it's going to take every last one of us to pull it off. Here's what we're going to do." Jeremy's desperate plan hung in the air, a final lifeline against the Harvester's relentless assault. The crew of the Resilience sprang into action, their faces grim with determination as they prepared for the daring gambit. In the ship's science lab, Dr. Eliza Hoffman pored over the data streaming in from the sensors, her brow furrowed in concentration. The Harvester's energy signature pulsed on the screen, a malevolent heartbeat that threatened to consume everything in its path. "There has to be a weakness," Eliza muttered, her fingers flying across the console. "Something we can exploit." Suddenly, a pattern emerged from the chaos, a ghostly echo of something ancient and powerful. Eliza's eyes widened as she cross-referenced the energy signature with the Resilience's extensive database. "Captain," she called over the comm, her voice tight with urgency, "I've found something. The Harvester's energy signature matches an artifact known as the Nexus Core. It's said to have the power to manipulate reality itself." Jeremy's heart raced as he listened to Eliza's findings. If the Nexus Core could give them a chance against the Harvester, they had to find it. "Where is this Nexus Core?" he asked, his mind already racing with possibilities. "According to the records, it's hidden in an abandoned Adosian research facility on a remote planet," Eliza replied, her fingers tapping the console. "Coordinates sent to your station." Jeremy turned to the Emperor's holographic image, his jaw set. "Odin, we need to set aside our differences and work together on this. The Nexus Core may be our only hope." Odin's eyes narrowed, his pride warring with the undeniable truth of the Harvester's threat. "Very well, human. A temporary alliance for the sake of our survival." As the Resilience and the Eradicator broke away from the battle, a small strike team assembled in the hangar bay. Jeremy and Odin stood at the head of the group, flanked by their most skilled operatives. The team boarded a sleek stealth shuttle, its engines humming to life as they prepared to infiltrate the research facility. The planet loomed before them, a desolate sphere shrouded in eerie silence. They landed on the outskirts of the facility, the shuttle's ramp lowering to reveal a landscape of twisted metal and long-abandoned structures. The team moved forward, their weapons at the ready, scanning for any signs of danger. As they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the facility, an oppressive weight settled over them. The air shimmered with an unseen energy, distorting their perceptions and sending chills down their spines. "Captain, I'm picking up some strange readings," said Chief Engineer Tanaka, her voice strained over the comm. "It's like the walls are alive." Jeremy and Odin exchanged a wary glance as they pressed deeper into the heart of the facility, the Nexus Core's influence growing stronger with each step. Shadows danced at the edges of their vision, and whispers of long-forgotten horrors echoed in their minds. Finally, they reached the chamber housing the Nexus Core, its pulsating form suspended in a web of shimmering energy. The team approached cautiously, their hearts pounding as they realized the artifact's true nature. "It's linked to the Harvester," Jeremy breathed, his voice heavy with dread. "The Nexus Core and the Harvester, they're two sides of the same cosmic horror." Odin's face twisted in a mix of fear and revulsion as he stared at the artifact, its power calling to him like a siren's song. What have we unleashed? The team stood on the precipice of an impossible decision, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. To harness the Nexus Core's power and risk unleashing an even greater threat, or to find another way to stop the Harvester before it consumed everything in its path. Jeremy's mind raced as he weighed the options, the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders like a physical force. He looked to his team, their faces etched with grim determination, and knew that whatever path they chose, they would face it together. Jeremy's eyes locked with Odin's, a silent battle of wills raging between them as they stood before the pulsating Nexus Core. The weight of the galaxy's fate hung in the balance, and Jeremy knew he had to act. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, reaching out to grasp the artifact. In a flash, Odin lunged, shoving Jeremy aside with a snarl. The Adosian Emperor's fingers closed around the Nexus Core, his face twisting with triumphant malice. "Fool!" Odin spat, his eyes gleaming with madness. "Did you think I would let you claim this power for yourself? The Nexus Core is mine, and with it I shall not only destroy the Harvester, but bend the entire galaxy to my will." Jeremy staggered back, his mind reeling from Odin's betrayal. Around him his team tensed, weapons drawn as they faced off against Odin's loyalists. The chamber crackled with tension, the air thick with the hum of the Nexus Core's unstable energy. "Odin, you can't do this," Jeremy shouted, his voice raw with desperation. "The Nexus Core is too dangerous, too unpredictable. It could destroy us all." Odin merely laughed, a cold, cruel sound that echoed through the chamber. "You lack vision, human. With this power I shall become a god, and all shall kneel before me." The Adosian Emperor raised the Nexus Core aloft, its pulsating light casting eerie shadows across his face. The artifact began to throb with power, its energy building to a crescendo. Jeremy launched himself at Odin, his team surging forward to engage the Adosian loyalists. The chamber erupted into chaos, the clash of weapons and the crackle of energy blasts filling the air. Jeremy grappled with Odin, his hands scrabbling for the Nexus Core. The two leaders fought with the fury of men possessed, their struggle growing more desperate with each passing second. The Nexus Core pulsed erratically in Odin's grasp, its unstable energy sending shockwaves through the chamber. The walls began to crack, the ground heaving beneath their feet as the artifact's power threatened to tear the facility apart. With a final desperate lunge, Jeremy wrenched the Nexus Core from Odin's grasp. The moment his fingers closed around the artifact, a blinding light exploded from its core, engulfing him in its radiance. The world fell away, and Jeremy found himself hurtling through a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. His mind reeled, his senses overwhelmed by the sheer strangeness of this new reality. And then he saw it. A vast, malevolent presence loomed before him, its form shifting and pulsating with an unspeakable hunger. The true essence of the Harvester, a cosmic entity of pure malevolence, its very existence an affront to all life. "Welcome, Jeremy Henry," the entity hissed, its voice 1,000 screams woven into one. "You have played your part well, as have the Adocians. Your conflict has weakened you both, made you ripe for the taking." Jeremy's mind reeled with the realization that the Harvester had been manipulating them all along, orchestrating the war between humanity and the Adocians for its own twisted ends. "I will not let you consume us," Jeremy growled, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and defiance. "I will find a way to stop you no matter the cost." The Harvester laughed, a sound like the death rattle of 1,000 worlds. "You cannot hope to stand against me, mortal. I am the void, the endless hunger that devours all. You are but a speck of dust in the face of my power." As the entity's presence pressed down upon him, threatening to crush his very soul, Jeremy felt a sudden surge of energy coursing through his veins. The Nexus Core, still clutched in his hand, had bonded with him, granting him a portion of its reality-altering power. With a cry of defiance, Jeremy lashed out at the Harvester, his mind and will locked in a desperate battle against the entity's overwhelming might. The nightmarish realm shuddered and warped around them, the fabric of reality straining under the force of their cosmic struggle. In the chamber, Jeremy's physical body stood rigid, the Nexus Core pulsating wildly in his grasp. His team and the Adocian loyalists, their battle forgotten, watched in awe and terror as the artifact's power surged through him, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance as Jeremy Henry, armed with the power of the Nexus Core, waged a war of wills against the Harvester within the nightmarish realm, while his allies could only watch and pray for his victory. In the crumbling research facility, Odin lunged for Jeremy's unconscious form, his eyes wild with desperate hunger for the Nexus Core's power. His fingers clawed at the artifact, trying to pry it from the human's grasp. "The power will be mine," Odin snarled, spittle flying from his lips. But before he could wrench the Nexus Core free, a shimmering beam of light engulfed Jeremy's body. Odin stumbled back, shielding his eyes from the brilliant glare. In a heartbeat, Jeremy and the artifact vanished, leaving only empty air. Aboard the Resilience, Commander Tanaka watched as Jeremy materialized on the transport pad, the Nexus Core clutched to his chest. Dr. Hoffman rushed forward, medical scanner already in hand as she knelt beside the captain's prone form. "His vitals are erratic," Hoffman said tersely, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The Nexus Core's energy is surging through his system like a raging storm." In the nightmarish realm of Jeremy's mind, the Harvester loomed before him, its form pulsing with malevolent hunger. "You are a fool to resist me," the entity hissed, its voice slithering through Jeremy's thoughts like a venomous serpent. "The Nexus Core is more than a mere trinket to be wielded. It is a conduit for my essence, a gateway through which I can feed upon the life force of entire civilizations." Jeremy recoiled, his mind reeling from the revelation. The Harvester pressed its advantage, its presence bearing down on him like a suffocating weight. "Surrender your will to me," it purred, its words dripping with false promise. "Embrace the Nexus Core's power, become my vessel, and I will spare your precious Earth and the Adocian Empire. Refuse, and watch as I consume them both, leaving you as the sole witness to their destruction." Jeremy's heart raced, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he grappled with the impossible choice laid before him. The fate of 2 civilizations hung in the balance, their lives resting on his next decision. But even as despair threatened to engulf him, Jeremy felt a sudden flicker of connection, a gossamer thread linking his mind to those of his crew aboard the Resilience. Through this shared consciousness, a glimmer of hope emerged. Commander Tanaka's voice echoed through the psychic link, urgent and determined. "Captain, if we combine the Nexus Core's power with the psionic abilities of our Adocian navigators, we may be able to sever the artifact's connection to the Harvester. We can starve the entity of its power source." Dr. Hoffman's presence joined the mental conversation, her tone heavy with grim understanding. But for this to work, The Adosian navigators would have to channel the full force of their psionic energy into the Nexus core. It would burn them out, Captain. They would be sacrificing their lives. As the weight of this revelation settled upon him, Jeremy looked out through the view screen of the Resilience, watching as the remnants of the human and Adosian fleets struggled against the Harvester's relentless onslaught. Ships burst into flames, their hulls crumpling like tin foil under the entity's assault. The choice lay before him, a decision that would shape the fate of two species. Jeremy closed his eyes, feeling the Nexus core's power thrumming through his veins, the Harvester's presence pressing against his mind. The seconds ticked by, each one an eternity as he wrestled with the burden of command. The lives of his crew, the survival of Earth and the Adosian Empire all rested upon his next words. Jeremy opened his eyes, his gaze locking with the Harvester's malevolent stare. He drew in a deep breath, steeling himself for the consequences of his choice. Jeremy steeled himself, the weight of his choice bearing down upon him like a leaden shroud. He reached out through the psychic link, his thoughts touching the minds of the Adosian navigators. "Proceed with the plan," he transmitted, his mental voice heavy with resignation. "It's our only hope." The navigators' response was immediate, their determination palpable even through the ethereal connection. They began to focus their psionic energies, pouring their very essence into the Nexus core. In the nightmarish realm, Jeremy felt the artifact surge with power, its surface thrumming beneath his fingers. He channeled the energy, directing it towards the Harvester's looming form. The entity recoiled, its tendrils of darkness writhing in agony as the Nexus core's power seared its very being. But the Harvester would not be vanquished so easily. It lashed out with renewed fury, its tendrils tearing through the fabric of reality itself. The ships of the United Fleet shuddered under the onslaught, their hulls groaning as if in pain. Sparks flew and alarms blared as the vessels strained to withstand the Harvester's wrath. Suddenly a new presence entered the fray. Odin, his craft darting through the chaos, unleashed a barrage of advanced weaponry upon the Harvester. The entity convulsed, its form rippling with each impact. For a moment it seemed as though Odin's attack might turn the tide. But the Harvester's rage only grew. It redoubled its efforts, its tendrils lashing out with terrifying precision. Ships crumpled like tin cans, their crews screaming as the void claimed them. On the Resilience's bridge, Commander Tanaka gripped the helm, her knuckles white. "We can't take much more of this," she shouted over the cacophony of alarms. In the psychic link, Jeremy felt the Adosian navigators' life forces flickering like candles in a tempest. They were nearing their limit, their energies all but spent. With a final, desperate surge, they channeled the last of their strength into the Nexus core. The artifact blazed with blinding light, its power surging through Jeremy's veins like molten fire. He felt the connection between the Nexus core and the Harvester waver, then snap like an overstretched cable. The Harvester convulsed, its form unraveling as the severed link robbed it of its power. Jeremy seized the opportunity, pouring every ounce of his will into a final, devastating assault. The Nexus core pulsed in his hands, its energy ripping through the Harvester's weakened essence. Slowly, agonizingly, the entity began to dissipate, its tendrils dissolving into wisps of shadow. The nightmarish realm shuddered around Jeremy, the twisted landscape crumbling into nothingness. With a gasp, Jeremy found himself back on the Resilience's bridge. The dormant Nexus core clutched to his chest. His body ached, his mind reeling from the strain of the battle. But even as the crew of the Resilience celebrated their hard-won victory, Jeremy couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Harvester may have been vanquished, but he knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that there were other horrors lurking in the vast expanse of the cosmos, horrors that would test the resolve of humanity and the Adosians alike. For now, though, there was a moment of respite, a chance to honor the sacrifices of the Adosian navigators, to mourn the fallen, and to steel themselves for the battles yet to come. Jeremy looked out at the stars, their cold light suddenly seeming infinitely more menacing. Whatever the future held, he knew one thing for certain. The war for the galaxy's survival was far from over. In the days following the Harvester's defeat, an uneasy silence settled over the battered remnants of the Adocian and human fleets. The once bitter enemies found themselves united by the shared horror of their ordeal, the sacrifices made still raw and bleeding. On the bridge of the Resilience, Jeremy Henry stood before the holographic projector, his face haggard and eyes hollow. Beside him, the imposing figure of Emperor Odin flickered into view, his regal bearing diminished by the weight of recent events. "Captain Henry," Odin began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued, "in light of our shared victory and the grave losses we have both endured, I propose a truce between our peoples. The Harvester has shown us that there are far greater threats lurking in the cosmos than our petty rivalries." Jeremy nodded, his shoulders sagging with exhaustion. "I agree, Emperor Odin. We must put aside our differences and work together to rebuild and prepare for whatever horrors the future may hold." As the two leaders ironed out the details of their newfound alliance, the crews of both fleets set about the grim task of repairing their ships and tending to the wounded. The Adocian navigators, who had given their lives to sever the Nexus Core's link to the Harvester, were honored as heroes, their sacrifice a solemn reminder of the price paid for victory. In the weeks that followed, Jeremy found himself hailed as a savior by both humans and Adocians alike. But even as he was showered with accolades and praise, a growing unease gnawed at his mind. The Nexus Core, now dormant, seemed to call to him from its secure containment unit, its whispers echoing in his thoughts. Dr. Eliza Hoffman, ever observant, noticed the change in Jeremy's demeanor. He withdrew from his duties, spending long hours locked in his quarters, poring over the scant data they had collected on the enigmatic artifact. When he did emerge, his eyes were haunted, his words cryptic and disjointed. "Captain, I'm concerned about you," Eliza said, her voice gentle but firm as she confronted him in his ready room. "The Nexus Core seems to be affecting you in ways we don't yet understand. Let me help you. Let's find a way to break its hold on your mind." But Jeremy brushed off her concerns, his gaze distant and unfocused. "You don't understand, Eliza. The Nexus Core is trying to show me something important. I can feel it, like a half-remembered dream just out of reach." As the days turned to weeks, Jeremy's behavior grew more erratic. He spoke of vivid prophetic dreams that haunted his sleep, visions of a cataclysm that dwarfed even the horror of the Harvester. In these dreams, he saw entire star systems consumed by an unknowable darkness, civilizations snuffed out like candles in a gale. Eliza worked tirelessly to find a way to sever the Nexus Core's connection to Jeremy's mind, but every attempt met with failure. The artifact seemed to defy all known laws of science, its true nature an enigma wrapped in a mystery. As Jeremy's obsession with the Nexus Core deepened, he became convinced that it held the key to preventing the impending catastrophe that plagued his dreams. He spent hours locked away with the artifact, studying its every facet, probing its secrets with a feverish intensity. Finally, driven by a compulsion he could no longer ignore, Jeremy made a fateful decision. In the dead of the ship's night cycle, he slipped away from his quarters and made his way to the hangar bay. There, he commandeered a small, long-range scout ship, the Nexus Core hidden away in a makeshift containment unit. As the scout ship detached from the Resilience and slipped into the void, Jeremy felt a sense of grim determination settle over him. He knew that his actions would be seen as a betrayal by his crew and the Adocian leadership, but he also knew that he had no choice. The fate of the galaxy, perhaps even the universe itself, hung in the balance. With a final silent apology to those he left behind, Jeremy engaged the scout ship's warp drive and vanished into the depths of space, the Nexus Core his only companion, on a journey into the unknown. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.